Hi everyone, good morning. Thank you so much for being here today. We're now going to start our webinar on pre-K enrollment, innovative practices and strategies. Before we begin, I just wanted to share a few logistical announcements. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on the webinars section of the early childhood page on TEA's website. Also, if you would like the handouts, those are located in the handout section on the control panel of GoToWebinar. You all are currently on mute. If you have any questions, please use the question section of the control panel of GoToWebinar. I have Scott Bodner here today from the early childhood team, and he's available to answer any questions you might have. And then lastly, if you have any other big questions or big issues, you can always feel free to email the early childhood education email address, and we can assist you there. So we'll go ahead and begin. Today we're going to do a quick introduction. We'll discuss an overview of pre-kindergarten enrollment. We'll discuss a tool you can utilize, the pre-K self-assessment, to look at your enrollment and access. We'll also review outreach and marketing strategies that you can utilize and discuss other considerations as well. And then we will end the webinar with some time for questions. So first, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Cassie Longoria, and I'm an early childhood education program specialist here at TEA. And I also lead the support network that's focusing on enrollment and access. So this year we piloted a new program called the Early Childhood Education Support Network, and it's basically a cohort of districts who are all working on the same focus area. So my group was enrollment and access, and I'll be sharing with you all today many of the strategies that I've learned by leading the cohort and also doing research for the cohort. I think we've discussed some really neat and innovative things, and I'm excited to share all of those with you. So first, I'm just going to do a little overview of pre-K enrollment and access. To begin with, research has shown that children and families in most need of human services are least likely to receive them. As some of you probably have seen firsthand, the mentality of if you build it, they will come has not always proven to be true. Oftentimes, families experience multiple barriers or they lack awareness of available programs. I also want to point out that since pre-kindergarten is often only half day and is voluntary, we almost have to view it as a human service program. It's not something that families will intuitively think to sign up for. It's voluntary, and they may not know the importance of the program or how to sign up or how to see if they're eligible. So a lot of the strategies that I'll be talking about today are really pulling from things that human service organizations do that I think can be applicable to pre-kindergarten as well. So the goal for today is to review practices and strategies to help increase pre-kindergarten enrollment and access. In working with districts and talking to a lot of you all in the field, I also surveyed some of you who signed up a little early just to get an idea of what would be most helpful. Many have expressed that outreach and marketing are strategies they could use assistance with. How can we let families know about our program? How do we reach those hard to reach families? So today we'll discuss outreach and marketing as strategies to increase enrollment. And we will also discuss methods that are both data-informed and family-centered, which are important considerations when determining what your action plan is going to be to help increase enrollment. I also first wanted to share the Prekindergarten Self-Assessment, the area that focuses on enrollment and access. Many of you have probably already seen this, but I wanted to quickly review it just in case. This self-assessment was developed by the early childhood team here at TEA, and there's a section that's devoted entirely to enrollment and access. Utilizing this self-assessment can help you determine where to focus any quality improvement strategies related to enrollment and access. If you have not seen it, I would definitely recommend taking a look. It's available on our website, and I've also put a link to it at the end of our presentation that's on the resources slide. For all of the categories in the self-assessment, you can score yourself as either developing, proficient, or exemplary. These next two slides, I've listed everything that's in the exemplary category. So if you were to assess yourself, and in order to be in the exemplary category, your district would be serving 75% of eligible 3- and 4-year-olds and have a full day program. Again, this is the exemplary category, and we expect that all districts may not be there and would have certain areas that can be improved upon. We sort of wanted to put the gold standard or the highest possible level that districts could be at. For outreach, the exemplary category has districts utilizing 3 or more outreach activities to notify families about pre-kindergarten. It also has that they would have an enrollment plan across all campuses that includes extended hours and has set up their process so that enrollment can be completed in one visit. I really wanted to talk about the outreach strategies because to me that is something that you can be the most creative with, and that also potentially has the lowest or no cost. So I think that's a really easy thing that many districts can do to help increase their enrollment. I wanted to introduce this tool to you overall so that you can use it as a framework for best practices and so that you can determine what to strive towards for your district or your campus. So again, this tool is linked in the resources section of this webinar, and it's also available on our website. So next we're going to discuss various outreach methods. Outreach seems to be the area that most districts and campuses say they need assistance with. While many families may not be able to attend your program due to other barriers, for example, if your program is half day, or maybe you don't have it at all of your campuses, there are many families who may be able to work with that, but they just don't know about your program or may not know that they qualify. So the goal here is to ensure that all families know about your program, and knowing that some families may need to choose other options based on barriers they face, we can at least know that we have let all families know about it in case this option does work for them. For many families, half day is a great option and is a good transition for kids that have not attended school before. So we want to be sure that we are reaching all of those families. And like I mentioned, it's also a great option to explore because these strategies are usually little to no cost. A few outreach strategies you can try are the following. So you can, to begin with, survey families. Many of the districts I'm working with this year have surveyed families for the first time, and there's many options for surveying families. Some districts will do a survey to current pre-K families to determine things like, how did you find out about our program? What barriers do you face in sending your child here? What are you satisfied with or unsatisfied with regarding our program? And then also you can survey families who have their child enrolled in kindergarten who qualified for pre-K but did not attend your school. So in that case, you can ask questions like, did you know that we had a pre-K program? If you did not send your child here, what was the reason? If you had known about it, would you have sent your child here? Do you have any suggestions on where we should advertise our program? So those are some questions that you can ask and some information that you can gain from those families. Some districts have even surveyed families at registration. So they have just a brief one-page survey, and when families are registering for kindergarten, they fill that out. So it's a great way to capture information from all families coming into your district. You can also survey families who aren't enrolled at your school at all. In this case, you would want to partner with community organizations who are serving pre-K eligible children, and you might be able to get some information about where they are attending if they're not attending your school. Lastly, I wanted to talk about doing outreach strategies with grandparents. This is a newer strategy that I had not considered, but I recently participated in a webinar and learned some great information. This was conducted by 0 to 3, and they found that 1 in 4 children under the age of 5 are cared for by grandparents. So I think this is a huge population that we can try and tap into. Also, as many of us know, newer parents often go to their own parents for advice. So I think trying to reach out to grandparents is a great way to promote your program and promote pre-K in general. You could possibly think of places that you could advertise that would reach grandparents, or places that you can post flyers. You'll also want to try to meet families where they are. You can ask your family specifically where they think you should advertise the program. Where are families spending their time when they're not at your school? So you can try things like grocery stores, government housing, faith-based organizations or churches, parks, WIC clinics, doctor's offices. There's a lot of different places that you can try. And I would really just ask your families for suggestions. They may have some ideas that you had not thought of before. You can also try using families as referral sources, and potentially even considering offering incentives for referrals, even if it's something small. We've also seen some districts utilizing family ambassadors. So they might designate a few parents to volunteer their time and try and do some outreach in their community. You'll also want to establish relationships with community partners who serve pre-K eligible families. You can try local workforce boards, government housing, or faith-based organizations. And these often work best when you've created some sort of reciprocal relationship. So maybe they will promote your pre-K program, and in turn, you're going to promote something for them. So maybe it's adult education classes, job skills classes, or something like that. One thing with community organizations is that you'll want to maintain outreach efforts over time and don't just wait until right before enrollment. Social service organizations often have high turnover of staff, so it's important that you might want to reach out regularly and over time, and not just right before your registration starts in the spring. You'll also want to promote pre-K early and often, both with community partners and just in general. One group that I worked with out of Dallas found that pre-K registration is a much more emotional decision than kindergarten registration. Families know and can emotionally prepare for sending their kids to kindergarten, but it might take an adjustment for families to think about sending their kids to pre-K. So if they know about it early, they can start preparing early, both I think mentally and emotionally, but also logistically and figuring out what they would need to do to make that work. In determining which community partners to collaborate with, I think it's important to think about hard to reach children. So what specific organizations in your community serve these children, and do you have a relationship with them? Do they know when pre-K registration is or how to refer families? Do they have a specific contact at your school or your district that they can reach out to with questions? You may want to consider offering training or a webinar for community partners so they know where to send families and how families can sign up. With this slide, I won't read through all of it because I know it's a lot of information, but I would definitely suggest thinking about each of these populations, so going down one by one and trying to think of at least one organization in your community that serves these children, and then trying to reach out to them and do some sort of connection. I think having a list of organizations that you have a relationship with can help increase your enrollment and help increase access to children who traditionally might not have equitable access to pre-K. And also, these children are usually the ones who need the most assistance in terms of academic success. So I think it's important to think about these populations and how you can take that extra step towards getting them into your program. For community partners, again, I would survey families to get ideas on where to advertise. So where are families spending their time during the day or in the evening or on the weekends? There might be some non-traditional places where you can put up flyers or reach out to that you hadn't thought of before. Also, if you can, participate in community fairs and events year-round. So don't just wait until the spring, but if you're a part of the community and doing things throughout the year, it'll make your enrollment a little bit easier come springtime when you have your actual event. You'll also want to build relationships with community partners. You can start with an email, but if you are able to meet in person, that often helps as well. Again, you'll want to maintain outreach over time. As I mentioned, due to high turnover of staff, it's important to have that outreach multiple times throughout the year and not just once. That way, everyone involved is aware of the process and the information that they may need in order to refer families. One idea that you could do with community partners is to create a listserv of those partners. That way you can distribute information quickly and efficiently of, hey, our pre-K registration is coming up. Here's the information you need. Here's where to refer them. And that may help as well. And that's something that also does not cost any money, but might be an easy thing you can do. So I wanted to just share an example of population-specific outreach. A few slides ago, I showed you that list of populations where you can consider connecting with specific organizations in your community. So for this one, a school learned that their community has a high rate of children and families experiencing homelessness. So after collaborating with community stakeholders, they put together a robust recruitment and outreach program to reach these children. And while the school had previously established a relationship with homeless shelters, they had not considered other places such as laundromats, thrift stores, motels, trailer parks, or campgrounds. These are all places that they learned that families experiencing homelessness may go to often. And then also having a conversation with homeless shelter staff in your community might give you an idea of where homeless families are before and after they're at the shelter. It's likely that right before and right after the shelter, they would still meet that definition of homeless and still be eligible for your program. Another important consideration is that with populations who are experiencing homelessness, it's important to have clear and easy registration instructions on flyers and multiple ways that families can register and find out information. Many districts are moving towards online registration, but it's important to still offer in-person or some other type of registration for those who may not be able to access online services. And here's another example of an LEA that partnered with a community organization. So a collaborative partnership was formed between an LEA and its local housing authority. The LEA recruited families in local neighborhoods by providing weekly drop-in preschool activities. So they would just go into that community and do something in a free space. So, such as a park or sidewalks. And it ended up being that the housing authority was really happy with what they were seeing in terms of the family involvement and some of the kids who weren't enrolled were able to participate in these learning opportunities that were free and right outside their door. And so later they ended up having an official partnership, and the Housing Authority agreed to provide future space in the development for a pre-K classroom. So sometimes doing small or free things can lead to other benefits. And another example of outreach that we discussed is parent surveys. One district surveyed parents at kindergarten registration. So they listed these two questions. It was the first thing that the family filled out when they came to sign up for kindergarten. And they asked where the child went to care before, or if they didn't go to care at all. And then if they didn't attend pre-K at the school district, they wanted to know why. Is it that they didn't know about the program? Was it because their child wasn't eligible? Did they need full day care? Asking these questions will really help you nail down some data on what the biggest barrier is. I have heard that many districts are sometimes surprised at the results of these surveys. So they may have heard anecdotally that full day is a problem or that lack of transportation is a problem. But when they do these surveys, they might realize that the biggest issue was that parents didn't even know about it, despite their marketing and outreach efforts. So this will help you determine what to focus on, and if there are barriers that you can address, such as awareness, that you can address them. Because we do know that, full day and transportation, due to budget constraints, you can't always address those. But if there's other things you can address that don't cost any money, then we should definitely take those into consideration. So I wanted to pause just for a minute and get some feedback from you all. What creative outreach strategies have been successful for you? If you could utilize the question function to share, and I'll read some out loud that some of you have shared, and then we'll also pull and collect these responses and distribute them to you afterwards for everyone who attended. So again, if you can use the question function and just name a creative outreach strategy you have used that's been successful for you. Great. So some of you are saying that you advertise at a local movie tavern in the summer and children's resale shops, parents of different organizations, Big Denton Playdate, which sounds like a community event. Doing a promotional video, being active in the community, whether it's a small Halloween carnival or some big event. It's important to always be present. Someone said advertising in every business possible. I think that's great as well. There's parents everywhere, so any business you can advertise is great. Some people said Facebook, activities at the local library. These are great. If you have any others you would like to share, definitely put them in the question section here. And again, I will collect all of these and be sure to share them with everyone who has attended the webinar. Okay, so now we're going to discuss marketing. One thing you'll want to do is to try to get feedback from your families on what messaging speaks to them. And you'll also want to work to create a program identity and maybe create a tagline or a logo for your program. If budget is an issue, you might want to consider partnering with a local community college or a university to create promotional materials. Oftentimes, they might be able to do something for a class project at low or no cost, or you can try reaching out to actual advertising agencies, and sometimes they have money in their budget for pro bono things. So there's different options you can do, and there's different people in the community who are willing to help. But if you have a tagline and a logo, it'll really help create an identity for your program, and it might help speak to families about, not just that this program exists, but why is it beneficial, or how will it help my child? Again, you'll want to promote pre-kindergarten early and often. You'll want to try and make attending pre-kindergarten become common knowledge in your community. You'll also want to use personal stories and feature families as much as possible in your marketing and promotional materials. One group, Early Matters Houston, conducted focus groups on effective marketing strategies, and they found that using families in their promotional materials were much more effective than other strategies, such as using a superintendent or other district leadership in the videos. Families are more attracted to programs when they see people like themselves participating and explaining the benefits. You'll also want to consider different learning styles when creating materials. Try to provide information to families in multiple ways: video, text messaging, website, social media. Just like children in your classroom learn in different ways, our families learn in different ways too. So doing it in as multiple ways as possible will really be helpful. Some districts have even started including information on their website on how to enroll in both text and having a video with someone speaking and explaining the process. You can also consider a text messaging service, which might be really helpful. One group I was working with found that families were much more comfortable text messaging any questions that they had. This is a trend we're seeing in society in general, that texting is more comfortable than calling. So it's something that you might want to explore. It also helps families who may not be fluent in English to take their time crafting their message or their question. I heard from the group I was working with that some families ask questions like, can my child attend pre-K if he has a mohawk? Or how do I know if my child is eligible? So there's a lot of questions that families might be afraid to ask, but text messaging makes it a little bit easier. It's also relatively low cost, and you and your team or different admin can take turns staffing that. So I think it's a really just creative and low cost technique that might help address some of the enrollment issues or give another way for families to ask questions about your program. When doing marketing, you'll also want to be sure to utilize what's in it for me messaging. So you'll want to catch families' attention with information on why they should register and not just where, when, and how. In the world of education, pre-K is still relatively new, and families may not know the benefits or see a reason to send their kids to school yet. So it's important to be sure to explain that. You can also use trusted messengers to explain the importance of early childhood education and provide information on registration. So 0 to 3 conducted a research study and found that after immediate family members, healthcare providers were the second most trusted source for parenting information. And then after that, parents also looked to friends, extended family, and faith-based organizations. So when you're creating a marketing and outreach plan, you'll want to consider each of these areas as potential referral sources. You'll also want to take advantage of utilizing your website and creating a social media plan. Survey families and ask them what social media sites or apps they're utilizing or different ways that they would want to be communicated with, and that would be a great place to start. You'll also want to ensure that your website tells a story. I watched a webinar once that had a great activity that I wanted to share with you all. And they stated, take a few seconds to think about your early childhood program. What would you want people to know about your program? Maybe you have teachers who have been there for years. Maybe your program has high assessment scores. Maybe you have great community partners, or you offer great wraparound services. So now think about your pre-K website. Is any of that information there? And usually it's not. Our websites usually have information on where to sign up and how to sign up, but it doesn't sell your program or tell your program's story. So if that information isn't there, it definitely should be. And it'll help parents really connect with your program and see the benefits of sending their child there. You'll also want to be sure that the information on your website is clear and easy to understand. You can ask parents to test it out for you and make sure everything makes sense. One example that I'm seeing frequently is that many districts will promote a registration week, and they might put a flyer on their website, and they'll say, come and register April 5th through 9th. But many families don't realize that they can actually register after that as well. So if families happen to see that after those dates, they might think that they lost their chance to register. So be sure that there's some clear information on that as well. You can also utilize a no wrong door approach on your website. So for families who don't qualify, you can include links to other helpful resources, organizations, or programs for families who may not qualify, because if the families aren't here this year, if they don't qualify, they will be here next year. And so you want to ensure that the experience they have with you right now is as positive as possible. You'll also want to be sure that your website answers questions like, where is pre-K offered? What types of programs are offered? Are there any partnership programs? What are the eligibility requirements? When and where will registration be offered? If I miss the enrollment week, can I still sign up? Is it the same at every campus? So there's a lot of information that you'll want to include, which I realize can be a little complicated because you don't want your website to be too text heavy, but there's some creative ways that you can do that with having FAQ sections or maybe drop-down menus, or different ways to communicate all of that information. So here's an example of what's in it for me messaging. This flyer is for a social service program, but I think the messaging is still applicable. So this flyer says, build up your family's strengths, make your strong family even stronger. So it clearly outlines the benefits, not just what it is and where to sign up. The only thing that I would probably add to this flyer is multiple ways for families to find out more information. So this flyer only has a phone number. You would want to include a phone number, maybe an email address. If you do text messaging, you can include that as well, maybe a website. But having multiple ways for families to connect with you will really increase the chances that they actually will, because chances are there's one of those that they're more comfortable with than the others. As I mentioned earlier about the videos and featuring families in your promotional videos, those can be really powerful. And so I wanted to share this quick video with you all and it features families who decided to send their kids to pre-K. And you'll see on their website, it says, hear from parents who decided to send their child to pre-K and about the changes they saw. So that is really powerful language that you can use so that families see, like, oh, there's a benefit to sending my kid to pre-K. So I'm going to share that with you all.
Pre-K is setting the foundation for them. It's helping them. The earlier, the better. You know, it's helping prepare them for the rest of their life.
Things I wish I could tell parents about pre-K, that it's a must. It's an excellent experience for the child as well as the parent.
He enjoys school. He loves to learn. He likes telling me about his day and the activities that he's done, and I get excited hearing about it.
Yo le diría a los papás que nunca estás muy joven, muy chico, muy pequeño para ir a la escuela, porque entre más pequeño estés, es mejor el aprendizaje. It was amazing, the changes that I started to see every week. It was more and more. They learned to read and write at the end of the school year, and it was amazing. All the dreams that they had, they started right there actually.
They're not just coloring inside the lines, they're actually learning and trying new things.
This is school. This is the real deal.
They're eager to learn more. They come home, they're tired, finally.
I think some parents may struggle with the fact that maybe sending their child to pre-K is going to force them to grow up too soon. I would let parents know that your baby will always be your baby, and sending them to school will really help them in the long run.
They actually come to learn. They learn all the basics for all their life in school. Es una oportunidad muy grande para los niños. Estás aprendiendo lo básico, estás aprendiendo a escribir, estás aprendiendo colores. She's writing more words. She's learning math problems.
Quiero decir a los papás que apenas que están queriendo poner a sus niños a pre-K, que no tengan miedo. Ellos los protegen mucho y ellos aprenden demasiado y los cuidan demasiado.
Cuando ella estaba en la casa conmigo era como, mami, nomás quiero estar contigo, yo no quiero estar con otros niños. Y después de ir a la escuela, ahora ella se va con los niños, practica con ellos. Y eso me dio un alivio que dije, wow, ella va a estar muy bien.
Starting your child off early is, to me, the most important opportunity that you can take advantage of in their life.
So please consider sending your kids to pre-K. Don't be afraid. Let him go. Let him grow. Let him have fun. Let him learn with other kids their age.
Okay, so that is a great video that I think really highlights some of the things that we talked about. It includes families, it includes personal stories, it's bilingual. So I think that's a really powerful way to sell your program and to talk about the benefits of your program. And again, I think there are many advertising agencies or community colleges or universities who might be interested in taking this on as a project and doing it for little to no cost. I also wanted to share this website. For the sake of time, I won't review it, but I would encourage you to look at it on your own time. And this is from the city of Chicago, but I love that this website is very family friendly. So when you go to the website and you put in your child's date of birth, it then populates a list of programs that that child would be eligible for based on their birth date. So it's very friendly for families. It has a no wrong door approach. No matter what the age of your child, there's an option for them. So I just think that's a really great approach. And it might be something that's more of a community project and not necessarily a campus or a district project, but it's something to consider when looking at increasing enrollment across the board. Here is also an example of a trusted messenger. So an Austin area nonprofit provided prescription pads to healthcare providers, and the healthcare providers would prescribe pre-kindergarten for eligible children and families. So it's a really cute idea. It's a great way to connect with a community partner. And again, it's a messenger that families trust. So here's some considerations when doing outreach and marketing. When possible, use data to prioritize goals and initiatives. You can look at enrollment gaps or use the self-assessment. You can use T-peer reports. If cost is an issue, consider utilizing volunteers or interns. They may be able to do community outreach or go door to door and promote your program. There's lots of different things that they can possibly do. And then if staff and capacity is an issue, again, consider volunteers or interns, collaborate with other departments within your district, and also consider collaborating with city or county organizations or initiatives that are working to either work on early childhood issues or just general issues for families in general. So in closing, you'll want to utilize data and family-centered approaches to inform outreach and marketing. Intentional outreach and marketing strategies can help increase enrollment. Think outside of the box when determining where and when to conduct outreach. Create equitable access by identifying new and diverse partners. And then also ask for help and partner with others within and outside of your district to help with some of these strategies. I also have a few resources here that you can reference. Some of the things that I talked about during this presentation. There's some sample messaging, a toolkit for engaging hard-to-reach families. There's the enrollment toolkit the TEA developed, the pre-K self-assessment, and then also recruitment and retention of children and families in social service organizations, which again have a lot of relevant and helpful information. So that is the end of our presentation. Here is my information. If you have any questions or if you need anything at all, feel free to reach out at any time. It's included also in the handouts. But we will take a few minutes for questions. So if you have any questions, please use the question section of the control panel of GoToWebinar, and I'll take those. So one person asked what Austin area nonprofit provides this, and that was the prescription for pre-K. And so that is included on our enrollment toolkit. So definitely utilize that link on the resources slide. You can find more information. If you have any other specific questions, definitely reach out and I can send that to you. One person asked, I've noticed in several large districts they're using April as their enrollment window, and how was April decided upon? So I don't know the exact process on how April was decided upon. I know that the guidance that comes out of TEA used to be that you had to wait until the fall in order to to enroll families and to review their eligibility documentation. And then fairly recently, the date was moved up to April 1st. So April 1st is now the date that anywhere after that, if you find a family that's eligible, you can review their documentation, You can register them, and then you don't have to review their documentation again for the next school year. So it's been moved up a little bit so that districts can prepare for the number of children they're anticipating or number of classrooms that they need. But as far as the exact process, I'm not too sure. So I'll look into that, Judy, and I will let you know. Okay, with that, it's 11:45, so that concludes our presentation. Again, if you have any specific questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'd be happy to help you with anything you might need. Thank you again for being here today, and this information will be posted on our website for you to reference later if you'd like to. Thanks again, and have a great day.